Welcome back to ET 147, your go-to course on all things unidentified alien extraterrestrial. You know the drill. So, last time we talked about UFO claims, UFO sightings, looking at the stars and seeing something that isn't necessarily identifiable. Now there is another wave of UFO claims that they're associated, but they tend to be a little bit darker. Nut jobs claiming to be abducted by aliens, experiments and probing and so on done. Animals mutilated, whatever. I guarantee you that I can't throw a rock anywhere without hitting at least one person, one aforementioned nut job who thinks that they were abducted by some sort of extraterrestrial being. However, let's start with the first and, well, maybe not the first, but the most credible and widely publicized abduction story. The Betty and Barney Hill abduction. September 19th, 1961 is when the abduction happened, just setting the tone. Barney Hill worked night shifts at the post office, despite his education in engineering and his service in World War II. Betty worked with state child welfare cases. When the two weren't working, they were involved with their NAACP chapter, and they were advocates and members in their local church. Right off the bat, they seem fairly credible. Now, the two decide to go on a little road trip, a little late honeymoon celebration. They're leaving their home in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, going to Niagara Falls. You know, they have a good time, kind of an impulse thing. You just walk out, handful of bucks in your pocket, see where your car takes you. When they're coming back that night, Betty saw what she described as a falling light slow down and then grow in size as it descended, then went right back up into the sky. It grew in both size and brightness, and it appeared to follow the two as they drove. Barney, he was a World War II veteran. He said, "All right, look, whatever. It's nothing to worry about. Guarantee you it's a satellite or another plane. Nothing nefarious." But the object appeared to continue playing cat and mouse with the two, following them, ducking down behind tree lines and shooting back up, really just toying with the couple. They get kind of irritated. Barney pulls off onto the side of the road. Betty looks at the object, the star that was following them, with a pair of binoculars. When she does, she says it appears to be a multicolored, spinning object. Barney does the same thing. He takes the binoculars and he's looking. And to him, he said it appears almost like a pancake. Sounds like a flying saucer. Barney said, "You know what? Whatever. I've had enough of this." He grabs a pistol and he's getting ready to go investigate, getting ready to protect him and Betty from whatever it might be, in case any ne'er-do-wells mean them harm. As Barney is looking at the object through the binoculars, he notices what he described as gray uniformed beings looking right at him behind window panes in the object, or other glass. So, he assumed that they were military from a different country. Experiences shape perception, so, as a World War II veteran, he thought they might have been Nazis. Why are they in New Hampshire? I don't know, but you work with what you got. Barney thought that the two were going to be captured. He runs back, tries and starts the car. They want to leave, and get as far away from here as possible. As they start driving, the two hear weird beeping sounds that sound to come from their trunk of their car. Then, They got a little drowsy, lost consciousness, and came to about 2 hours later and only 35 miles down the road, which I would be fairly upset if I'm supposed to be making good time on my travel and it takes me 2 hours to go 35 miles. But whatever. They come back to, again, 35 miles down the road, and they're like, okay, yeah, that was weird. They get home, and within 24 hours, they've noticed that the clothing they were wearing was different. Betty's dress was torn. The binocular strap that Barney was wearing, it was also tattered. Barney's shoes were scuffed, looking like he was dragged. How would this have happened on a normal road trip? Betty called her sister, who had apparently seen other UFOs before throughout her life. The sister refers the two to contact an astrophysicist, who then tells them to examine their trunk where they'd heard the beeping sounds. They take a compass to it, and they're hovering over it, and they notice that they look at the trunk and they see 5 shiny concentric circles. Each one was highly magnetized. When they hovered the compass over it, the needle would jump all over the place. But if they went to other parts of the trunk where the 5 little indentions weren't, there was nothing that a normal car wouldn't have. Understandably, the two are a little bit freaked out at this point. Betty decides that it would be best if they put all of the luggage that they had taken with them outside. It's probably irradiated, she said. Yeah, valid claim. If I passed out and there were 5 magnetized indentions on my car, I would consider that maybe my luggage might have some gamma rays or particles or whatever bouncing around that, maybe not best in the actual house. Betty is worried. She's freaking out. She's like, yo, what just happened? Barney just wants to forget about it. He says that it was probably nothing, or if it was something, maybe it would be best to just forget about it. The two couldn't remember the details. Again, there was that missing time where they passed out for 2 hours and came back to 35 miles down the road. Only 35 miles in a 2-hour road trip. Anyways, they decide to go to hypnotherapy, which was a very big branch of psychology at the time. They want to recover the memories and find out what happened during the missing time. Barney, again, he was like, no, I don't trust this. I just want to forget about it. Let's leave the whole thing alone. Following the incident, Betty began having a series of strange dreams. By themselves, they didn't make much sense to her, but she was able to write them down more vividly and remember them better than any other dreams that she had ever had in her life. She writes down the events and begins to piece them together in a chronological order to her. She thinks that it might explain what happened during the 2-hour missing time. They were driving. There was some kind of a roadblock. They get stopped. They end up in the trees in the forest. Bunch of strange stuff happened. But her dreams were maybe a hint to piecing together what had happened. Now, like a normal individual, or a healthily functioning, responsible one, they decide to go to therapy. Go to therapy. Utilize your resources. They go back to the hypnotherapy to try and piece together things that had happened, remember the events, recuperate the lost time. After the hypnotherapy, they had come to the conclusion that a vessel had landed on the car, leaving the 5 indentions, the 5 little magnetized indentions mentioned before. When the vessel landed, the two passed out, lost consciousness, and then they were both led up a long silver ramp into the craft that they were seen following them. The craft Barney saw with the little gray figures, the little uniformed other military beings who were somehow very human and yet also not at all. They had gray skin, purplish lips, and just other qualities that most normal Homo sapien humans do not have. The vessel lands, they pass out, they're led up the ramp into the spaceship, and that's where the probing starts. They were separated, examined at different times on a metal table in the same room, one after the other. Betty said, why can't... Betty apparently was best friends with the aliens. She was talking to them the whole time, conversing with them in rough English. Their English needs a little bit of work, but whose doesn't? It's a very complex language. Also, the beings appeared to speak telepathically. She could hear them, but didn't notice a mouth moving or any vocal cords that would produce sounds. She was talking to them, hey, why can't we be examined at the same time? This is my husband. I would like to be there. I don't know what is going on. The leader of the beings assured Betty that they were going to be relatively fine. They're just doing some probing, some experiments, just scientific purposes only. Betty goes first. She's on the table, and by her memories and the hypnotherapy, she's conscious for most of it. Again, she's hanging out, she's chatting with the aliens, trying to figure out what's going on. And then they do what she assumes or described as an alien pregnancy test. They shoved a very sharp needle into her navel. She screamed, she's like, "Ah, I'm in pain." And then one of the beings waved its hand over Betty's face, and all of a sudden the pain was just magically gone. Then Barney's examination started. Apparently these beings that were examining them didn't understand the concept of human aging. They looked at Barney, and they discovered that Barney's teeth were removable. No, they weren't just plucking random teeth for keepsakes. They did keep other samples, though. Barney apparently had dentures, and Betty explained that to the aliens, the beings, and the beings just didn't understand that concept. After all this, during the experiments and the probing, the scientific purpose probing, they had samples collected. They had skin scrapings and fingernail clippings and strands of hair and bodily fluid secretion stuffs, all allegedly taken and placed on what appeared to be little glass slides, almost like the aliens are doing some kind of experiment. Hey, what are these people? What are they like? Maybe they just want to get an extra credit for their alien science class and they need hands-on experience in the field. I don't know. Again, Betty is besties with the aliens, apparently. So she's asking them everything. Hey, where are you from? Where did this vessel, this ship come from? And the aliens show her a map of the stars, the galaxy and everything. And they're asking Betty, well, where are you from? She's like, look, I'm not an astronomer. I don't know that much about stars. The aliens find that funny. They're like, okay, that's odd. Why should we tell you where we're from if you don't even know where you are? But nonetheless, they showed her a star map. Again, allegedly that she remembered after the hypnotherapy and piecing together her dreams. They showed her a star map that, after one of the hypnotherapy sessions, she drew to the best of her abilities. We looked at it in 1961 when the abduction happened, and we, scientists, not we, I'm not an astronomer either, they couldn't find any solar system or nebula or cosmos or galaxy or other terms that resembled the star map Betty had drawn. But then, handful of years later, in roughly 1967 to 70-ish area, right with the Rolling Stones, Summer of Love, everything, yeah, all that's going on. Someone examined it later with new technology and discovered that the star map Betty had drawn looked an awful lot like a new system or galaxy or solar system or whatever that we had discovered, called Zeta Reticuli. The Zeta Reticuli system is apparently the one that is closest to the planet Earth. Maybe our alien friends are just next door neighbors living down the road. The Zeta Reticuli system was discovered years after Betty initially drew out the map. And then they pieced it together and was like, oh, this looks similar. Yes, of course, you can shut that down as coincidence and conspiracy. Maybe she somehow got lucky and managed to draw a star map that resembled something we had never seen. Or maybe the alien being friends had actually shown her where they came from. The Zeta Reticuli system. The two realized that their stories, their memories, all kind of connected with each other. By this point, Barney had accepted it, but he hadn't embraced it. Betty, she was popping up everywhere. She was like, "Hey, yo, what's up? I got abducted. Here's my story." But through her dreams and the hypnotherapy and piecing together other pieces of it, their stories were relatively similar. An important part to note is during their hypnotherapy sessions, they would have their memories erased. They would try to induce amnesia after the session. Why? I mean, so that they can't talk to each other and make a different story. So assuming that the hypnotherapy and the amnesia memory repression had been effective, the two were still able to tell two different tales that were very similar. Which leads me to think that maybe it did happen. Now, I don't know. I'm not one of the gray beings that experimented on them, and nor am I Betty or Barney Hill. Now, sure, maybe. But maybe the aliens aren't that bad. Yeah, okay, sometimes it happens. Earth is really interesting in terms of the life and the people and the, environment and Earth and everything that is here. We as humans, we live here and we don't know everything about it. We study it all the time. Why do people go out into the Amazon and trek around? To find new species, to study species. What if the aliens are doing that with us? They check back in every now and then. They've accelerated their checking in since the advancement of nuclear technology, where they're like, okay, maybe the little people who just recently learned how to walk upright, now they're playing with big atomic fire. Maybe we should keep an eye on them. Maybe they're just coming here to do a little sample, some research, some strictly scientific probing. Maybe they aren't. Yeah, sometimes bad abductions happen. You've got UFOs in Brazil that have actual deaths and injuries associated with them. Don't we do that with animals too? How many times are we experimenting on animals, arguably inhumanely, and the animals end up dying, or we have to cut them open to study more about them? The aliens might just be curious, might want to just advance their knowledge. But I digress. That was the first widely known, widely publicized, widely credible abduction tale. The two were very credible witnesses by all other means. Their stories seemed to line up. So what happened? Did they make all this up for attention? No. Barney wanted to forget. He didn't really want all that spotlight. It was a credible story, and I believe that it happened and that they were abducted. UFOs and aliens go hand in hand. Abductions are just another side of that story. This has been ET-147. Keep your eyes open. Look at the skies, pay attention to what's around you, and don't get probed.